Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast with me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, it's a pretty muggy Oregon today. It's kind of cloudy, but it's warm out. And looking ahead this week, it looks like it's going to be pretty okay, to be honest. High 70s, mid 80s. Still this kind of cloudy weather burning off in the afternoon. And next weekend, and well, I guess maybe even all the way into the beginning part of next week, the following week, looks like some of those really just perfect 80-degree sunny days. So looking forward to it. So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to make decisions in the morning than they are at night? Maybe you wake up and think, tonight I'm not drinking, or maybe it's not about alcohol at all. Maybe you decide you're finally going to go for that walk after work or get to bed a little earlier. Whatever the decision is, it feels completely reasonable when you make it, you mean it, and then the day happens. You don't even have to have a terrible day. It doesn't take some huge crisis. Most days are just full. And by the time the evening rolls around, that decision that you made over coffee doesn't always feel quite so obvious anymore. Instead, there's this quiet negotiation that starts in the background. Maybe tonight doesn't matter. I'll start tomorrow. One drink isn't a big deal. And if you've ever wondered why that happens, I don't think the answer is what most of us assume. For years, I believed it was a willpower problem. I simply started the day with more discipline than I had in the evening. If I changed my mind after work, I assumed I'd somehow failed. But over time, I started looking at it differently. What if it isn't that our willpower disappears? What if it's that we're asking our brain to make one of the hardest decisions of the day at the exact time that it's least equipped to make it? That question changed how I thought about my own behavior. Because one of the things I appreciate most about neuroscience is that it helps us stop turning everything into a character flaw. Sometimes it's a much simpler explanation. Our brains change across the day. Not dramatically, you don't become a different person after 5 o'clock, but your brain has been working since the moment you woke up. It's been paying attention, solving problems, regulating emotions, making decisions, not to mention all the things it does to just keep our body going. And it's been adapting to everything that the day has thrown your way. By evening, it isn't broken. It's simply working with fewer mental resources than it had that morning. And that's important because a brain with fewer resources naturally leans towards what's familiar. That's one of the reasons habits feel so automatic at the end of the day. Not because you've stopped caring about your long-term goals, not because your values changed. It's your brain simply looking for the most efficient path. And when I began to understand that, something shifted for me in terms of creating sustainable change. Now, understanding that doesn't let me off the hook. But it helped me stop making every difficult evening mean something about who I was. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? I started asking, how can I work with this brain that I actually have? And honestly, I got to practice that just this week. Last weekend, You may know if you listened to the revisited episode that I was away for the weekend, and it was a great trip. But by the time I got home, I knew I was heading into a work week that was especially busy. And then I had already set up a night out on Thursday night, which is towards the end of the work week, right? With a friend that I haven't seen for a while. And that day, Thursday, when the time came, I thought about it in the morning. I was already having a hard time getting out of bed on Thursday morning. I felt tired. And instead of doing what I would normally do, which is just go, I actually texted her and said, "Hey, can we take a rain check?" And obviously, not because I didn't want to see her, I did. But I found myself thinking about how I was probably going to feel by 6:30, 7 o'clock that night. I knew I would be mentally tired. I knew I'd be coming off a long workday, and I knew that I was trying to remain alcohol-free. And I knew that if I put myself in the situation of going to a local restaurant, brew pub restaurant, actually, that I'd be asking myself to make one of the hardest decisions of the day after I'd already spent most of my mental energy somewhere else. So I proactively took myself out of the situation. Not because dinner was a bad idea, not because having a beer would have made me a failure. It wasn't the week to make things harder than they needed to be. And here's what surprised me. I did not feel deprived. I felt cared for. And that was a different experience than the old version of me who would have spent the whole evening negotiating with herself and then wondering why it felt so hard. Instead, I realized something much simpler. Sometimes changing your relationship with alcohol isn't about making a different decision in the evening. Sometimes it's about making the decision earlier in the day. And that's really what planning has become for me. Years ago, if someone had suggested making a plan around drinking, I probably would have rolled my eyes a little. It sounded restrictive, like one more rule I was supposed to follow. And that's the good news. That's not what it feels like anymore. Now it feels like support. It feels like looking ahead and asking, what can I do now that will make tonight a little easier? And that's a very different question because I'm not trying to control myself. I'm trying to help myself. And I think that's one of the biggest shifts that I've made over the years. I stopped asking myself to be stronger, and I started asking how I could be more supportive. And there's a big difference between those things. When we focus on being stronger, we assume the answer is more willpower. When we focus on being supportive, we're recognizing that our future self is going to have fewer mental resources than we have right now. And that's not weakness, that's just being human. I think we forget how much our brains do in the course of a normal day. And by the time evening rolls around, we have probably made hundreds, if not thousands, of decisions. Most of them weren't especially important on their own, but they still required your attention. And your brain has been switching gears all day long. So when you find yourself standing in the kitchen after dinner thinking, why does this feel harder than it did this morning? The answer isn't necessarily that your commitment has changed. It may simply be that your brain has. And I find that incredibly hopeful because it means we can stop making every difficult evening mean something about our character. Instead, we can start asking better questions. Not what's wrong with me, but what would help me right now? And that question completely opens up a different conversation. Maybe the answer is that you've already decided tonight is alcohol-free. Maybe it's that you've got something else in the refrigerator you're genuinely looking forward to. Or maybe the answer has nothing to do with what's in your glass. Maybe what you really need is dinner or a shower or an early bedtime. The point is that you're responding to what your brain actually needs instead of automatically giving it what it's become accustomed to. And that's an important distinction because alcohol often becomes the answer to a question that we never stopped to ask. We're tired, we're mentally overloaded, we're looking for relief. And if alcohol has been the fastest path to relief for years, then of course your brain is going to suggest it. That's what brains do. They remember what has worked before. And of course, the good news is, which you've heard me talk about many times, they can also learn something new. Not overnight, not because you force them to, not because you are requiring it for change to happen right now, but because you keep giving them different experiences. And that's how habits change. Not by fighting your brain, but by actually teaching it. Now, before we keep going, this is a great place to remind you that awareness is one of the most powerful tools you have when changing your relationship with alcohol. Whether you use a notebook, your notes app, or a mindful drinking app like Sunnyside, paying attention to your patterns helps you understand your brain a little better. Because the goal isn't perfection. You know that. It's information. And information helps you make different choices. Hey, it's Molly, and I'm here to talk to you about Sunnyside Med. That's right, Sunnyside has a new program that they've been offering that includes medication that can quiet alcohol cravings. It's called naltrexone, and it works by making alcohol less rewarding in your brain. And Sunnyside now offers access to naltrexone 100% online and combined with personalized care. Thousands of people have already joined Sunnyside Med and are cutting their drinking nearly in half. Sunnyside Med doesn't just give you a pill. It is a whole support system to help you reach your goals. I really want you to check it out, so visit sunnyside.co/minimalist to learn more and see if you qualify today. Now, here's what I'd love for you to experiment with this week. Tomorrow morning, before your day gets busy, ask yourself one simple question. What can I do right now that will make tonight a little easier? That's it. What matters is that you're thinking ahead with the understanding that the person making decisions tonight is still you, but after a full day of living. And I think that version of you deserves a little support. Not because you don't trust yourself, but because you know yourself. You know that there are going to be evenings when your brain has fewer resources than it did that morning. Planning ahead isn't about controlling that version of yourself. It's about supporting that version of yourself. When I decided to not go to dinner with my friend this week, I don't remember thinking, I'm being so disciplined. I remember thinking, this is what I need today. And that feels very different. It feels honest. And I think that's what this work is really all about. Not trying to become someone else, not trying to have more willpower, just learning to respond honestly to the brain and body you have on any given day. So the next time that the promise you made over coffee feels a little harder to keep after dinner, don't rush to make it mean something about you or about your commitment. Just pause for a moment. Remember that your brain has been working all day. And then ask yourself, what would supporting me look like right now? Until next time, choose peace, my friends, and I will see you on Thursday. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist Podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.